Welcome. You're listening to the Grow Ortho podcast, presented by HIP. This podcast is dedicated to orthodontists who want to stand strong in their market and be leaders in their community. Now, on to today's show. So, Dr. Thomas, thanks for taking the time to come chat with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
it's an
absolutely.
Awesome place y'all have here.
Thank you. Excited to chat today and just about our partnership and growth, and really just telling listeners, viewers, more about you and your story. So kind of take us back to residency and why you wanted to get into orthodontics and the dental field. What did that look like for you?
So I grew up in Mobile. My dad's a pediatric dentist. I always thought that my whole plan from like 9th grade on was I'm going to go to dental school and work with my dad one day. And I did. Just went to Auburn and worked hard, got to dental school in Birmingham at UAB, and worked hard and got into pediatric dentistry at UAB and did that. And through dental school, you get exposed to different specialties. I always thought oral surgery was cool, but I wasn't sure that I wanted to do that. And then just, pedo just made sense because my dad was doing that. And now, 2 years, go take over my dad's practice or work with him for a little while. You get exposed to a lot of orthodontics in pediatric dentistry, not so much in dental school, but and from the diagnostic side. And I just started to get super interested mechanically in orthodontics. It was mentally stimulating, kind of like a puzzle every case. So about halfway through pediatric dentistry, I started talking to some of my professors, started talking to some of the ortho professors, and that was around the time that I met my current partner, Keith Harvey. He was teaching as an adjunct professor at UAB in the orthodontic department there. He would drive up from Mobile to Birmingham twice a month and teach every other Monday. And I didn't know him, but I knew who he was, and so I just introduced myself to him one day, and he was like, "Yeah, I know who you are, yeah," and I know your dad, all that stuff. And so we started eating lunch together pretty much every Monday that he was there. And so I started picking his brain about ortho, and I told him I was interested. And I was like, "I'm thinking about applying, have fun when we do it around here." And he was like, "Heck yeah, that's a great idea. If you need any help, let me know," type thing. So we just kind of struck up a friendship, and I ended up applying and going through the match process and all that. And I'd done 2 years of pedo already, so I applied to a couple of 3-year programs, but ended up matching at Tufts University in Boston, and that was one of the coolest experiences of my life. Got married halfway through it to my wife, who you guys met a minute ago. And my first year of marriage, we dated long distance. We met. I was in Birmingham for 6 years in dental school and residency, and we met 3 weeks before I moved to Boston. I had when I was applying and matching, we didn't know each other, and so I met her 3 weeks before I left Birmingham to move to Boston, and then we started dating long distance and got married that summer after my first year in Boston. So our first year of marriage was my second year of residency in Boston at Tufts. And it was just great. It was like a long honeymoon. It's such a cool city up there. Yeah. And we love visiting Boston now, just going back. So that's kind of how I got interested in ortho. I think pedo kind of opened my eyes to it. And my dad was highly supportive of that. I talked to him about it, and he'd always kind of been interested in ortho too. So he encouraged it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What was his thoughts?
Leaving him a little bit, but not really. We have a good kind of sister practice, and we still one of our ortho locations is in one of his building with pedo, so it's like a duplex, and half is ortho, half is pedo.
That's awesome.
So I do get to see him when I work there.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the transition from pedo to ortho. And then so I got done with ortho in Boston at Tufts and immediately moved to Mobile and went in with Dr. Harvey. We had stayed in touch throughout the whole time, and went in with him, and we became. I think I was an associate for. It was a short associateship period because we already kind of knew each other, knew a lot about each other. So it was a 6-month period, and then we became partners in that. At the end of that first year, I guess, technically became partners at the end of that 6 months, but 2016 was our partnership start. Then we we opened a new, there was that duplex where my dad was originally an ortho practice, and that orthodontist moved out. It was just vacant space. And so when I was talking to Dr. Harvey along the way, I was like, man, it'd be a good idea. We just put an ortho practice in that building, because he had a practice, it was a great practice. It was probably the average orthodontic practice in the United States, one doctor, one location. Probably not enough room for two of us for sure. So we were like, we got to grow. So we opened a new one in my dad's duplex building and re-outfitted that original side with an ortho practice like it had been designed for originally. And that's kind of how we got it started.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of my story, because I moved to New York.
Yeah.
My wife was in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
We started dating, and then, left the city and came back to where I was from. So that's really cool. You say, Boston was awesome. You guys go back and visit. Like, what was it like kind of moving from the South up north and that transition?
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I finished pedo on a Friday and started ortho in Boston on a Monday. So my mom and one of her buddies were super helpful in that move. I had interviewed all around Midwest, out west and around the South. And I thought culturally, surprisingly, Boston was such a great fit for me. A lot of my co-residents who I had met there in the class ahead of me were a lot like me. And so I was super excited to go there. It was a very easy transition for me. I really hit it off and still stay in touch with all my classmates from there. Yeah.
You a baseball fan?
Yeah. Oh man, I got an incredible baseball story from that.
Yeah.
From those
What is it?
as well? And I'm going to take too long with this podcast, but so I grew up with a guy named Luke Peavy, who was in my class at St. Paul's over in Mobile growing up, and his older brother is Jake Peavy. Okay. Yeah, who was a pitcher, a Cy Young Award winner for the San Diego Padres, maybe 2007 or something. But he got I was sitting in orientation in the library at Tufts, with all the dental residents are there, and they're telling you how to navigate the library, the facilities, and I'm just playing online on ESPN.com, and it says Peavy gets traded to the Red Sox. I was like, yeah. So I got the privilege of their family inviting me to a lot of the games and World Series and all that stuff. So it was fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I wasn't a huge baseball fan before that, but I became one
for
sure in those 2 years.
Nice little taste of home while you're away in Boston.
Yeah, we were big Braves fans growing up, but
of course, David Justice,
right? Oh yeah. Fred McGrath.
I tell everybody, like, the teams, at least it seemed like the only teams in existence when I was a kid: Chicago Bulls, Florida State, with college, Dallas Cowboys, and Atlanta Braves.
That's right.
And now I don't root for any of those teams. Sadly, I'm a Dolphins fan now. So,
well, I'm from California, so I'm a Niners, Giants, Warriors. So I didn't exist in that land.
Yeah.
It was Michael Jordan. And we got WGN locally here, so we get all the Bulls games down here.
So, yeah, he was so fun to watch. Yeah. So the situation with you and Dr. Harvey, I mean, it sounds like so simple, but you kind of in a lot of ways hit the jackpot. Like that's a really cool situation that happened to work out for you. Was there anything specific just in terms of, staying in touch, communication? Like a lot of people, I think, find that hard to kind of jump out of residency and immediately kind of find an opportunity that's not only going to help you and your foundation and grow, but also be something good for somebody down the road who may want to transition. It sounds like you guys are a great team.
We are. I think I got lucky as far as that goes, really, that two of us are so compatible, and we got to know each other a little bit before. And he knew my dad pretty well. They had worked closely together on the referral network, working, he had treated a lot of my dad's patients. So I think from a marriage standpoint, there were a lot of boxes that were already checked. If you meet somebody and you have no idea who they are or what kind of family background they are, I mean, it's probably wise to take a while and get to know them from a character standpoint and all that. But there were a lot of things that we already knew about each other, and then we're good. And so I think our relationship was able to progress a little faster. Similarly with my wife. I didn't know my wife growing up, but I knew a lot of her cousins and stuff like that. So there were a lot of, things that are important in a relationship that we already kind of knew about each other, even though we didn't know each other with Dr. Harvey.
I'm curious, as you were getting into ortho and thinking about going into practice for yourself, did you have any vision or goal of like what kind of practice you wanted to build at that time? Like, did you know coming right out, like you wanted to go big and go fast? And then the follow up to that is when you did partner with Harvey, with Dr. Harvey, like, did he have a different vision for the practice than maybe you had initially?
I don't really know what his initial vision was. I kind of had, once I started learning about ortho a little bit when I was in it, and just kind of raw, business numbers and number of patients and starts and all that stuff. You can kind of do some raw numbers in your head. What's percentage of overhead? What's industry standard and all that stuff. I kind of had a number in my head of maybe close to $2 million per doctor, in production numbers. And I was like, all right, well, I can have fun. I can treat my patients well. I can serve a lot of people and have a nice lifestyle, looking at, your overhead on that and all that. And so 2 doctors, that would have been a $4 million number. That was probably originally something in my head that was a goal, to have a really healthy practice and a healthy business that was in a kind of a sweet spot. And so I guess that was my initial maybe kind of thing that I was shooting for.
Was there a moment where things changed, or did it just kind of eventually progress? But like, where was that shift where you're like, man, we could do this like bigger and better? Like, did you see another practice, or did you just start thinking like, man, we're doing these kind of numbers and I'm seeing this many patients and I'm not burnt out and we can keep going? Or like, what was that kind of
a combination
shift?
Of all of those things, really? I had a great influence. I visited Todd Bovenizer in North Carolina pretty early on, like maybe 2017. He was a Damon mentor, and so was Dr. Harvey. Dr. Harvey was one of the original Damon guys who stuck with Ormco throughout its inception and their growth. And so we would have young docs like myself come into our practice as mentees of Dr. Harvey's, but I think our rep had recommended, hey, go visit another Damon doc somewhere else, and introduced me to Dr. Bovenizer in North Carolina. And he kind of opened my eyes again to some more growth and different ways of running the business from a systems standpoint. Just he's very organized, and he's a clinical and systems nut in a good way. And he did a great job of marketing his practice in the community, a lot like Dr. Fishman does here. So I learned a lot from him, and some of those visions and kind of dreams and goals started to just evolve a little bit as I learned more about what we could do. And we did kind of reach some of those numbers, and I realized that I wasn't too busy and I wasn't necessarily fulfilled. Kind of like in Luke's Yellow Book, talks about different kinds of personalities. And we achieve a goal, and we just, I was like, oh, well, let's create another one,
Right.
And that's, I guess I found that about myself, that like, the goal is, the journey is the fun part. It's not getting to the top of that mountain. There's no mountaintop high when you get there. It's just the relationships and serving and getting better along the way. Always just trying to get better daily. Yeah. And if you do that, then I think those goals naturally are gonna kind of change.
Yeah. So in terms of partnership and us linking up, how has HIP kind of helped with those goals that you had? What's been, just from your side of the story?
I think y'all's influence on me has been mindset. When I find something that works, I try new things, but like I like to find something that works well and go with it. And I was a little reluctant, I would say, with my personality to change my mindset for a long time. I found ways to get better in other areas, but I didn't have a total mindset change. And getting to know y'all, I feel like was just kind of an aha moment where I was like, all right, this mindset change stuff is cool. I need to get out of my own way, And from a scheduling and standpoint, from a new patient acquisition standpoint, and how we treat those, your shirt says "call the leads," like all that, So I think y'all were a big influence on changing my mindset, and that's how maybe new goals opened up.
Yeah, and I mean, just kind of briefly for those who are watching or
Yeah.
listening, when we first linked up,
Yeah.
it was in 2019, and certainly, I mean, we've changed a lot
Yeah.
since then. We kind of overhauled everything in 2020.
Yeah.
You know, long story short, it didn't work out
Yeah.
in 2019. And would you say a lot of that was mindset from your side, and just kind of briefly your thoughts on that?
Mostly mindset, partly just timing. Timing's everything in relationships. I feel like, Lord puts different people together at different times for different reasons, but financially probably wasn't the right time for us, and I wasn't able to have the mindset change back then. So I probably let being too rigid with finances and not allowing ourselves to grow, trying to stick to certain numbers and all that. And,
thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I know, from our standpoint and what we started to see, not only with you guys, but as we really started to grow, which really was kind of 2018 is when we really started to grow within orthodontics. We started to realize, with you guys and other practices and we always say, like in the sales pitch, 10% of the partners back then were seeing 90% of the revenue.
Right.
And we started to scratch our heads and say, well, why isn't this working for most practices? Because, similar type of practice, leads are pouring in. And it would become this conversation of, well, we don't know where the leads are. The leads are bad. Our team said they called them. Certainly there were other factors, but those were some of the big ones. And so what we started to put together and realize is a lot of times marketing can just expose problems, not fix problems. And
that's what it did for us, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like,
for sure. Harrison attests to that.
Yeah. We started to say, how do we zoom out and solve more pieces of the puzzle?
Right.
So there's actually transparency, accountability. There's no guessing. We want to take the guesswork out of it. And that's when we really put together and developed. We had Practice Beacon as an idea, but we had never had the time to develop it. So we developed that during COVID. And then beyond that, it's like, how do we develop our training and curriculum? And Harrison's, been instrumental in coaching and making that training stick in practices. So really just bolstering up the framework because, I always give the analogy, it's like trying to catch water in a colander.
Yeah.
When you turn on that faucet, it just goes everywhere. And so how do we track that whole process? Obviously, this time around, we started in February.
Yeah.
And I want to say it was like February 6th. So onboarding and then ads went live in March. I want to say early on, we even had to turn it off like over the weekend. This is just like going bananas.
The first week we did it, I think that first weekend we did have to turn it off. Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't have our call center set up yet then.
Yeah.
And our front desk was just overwhelmed in a good way. But I think a big thing is exactly what you're talking about in Harrison talks, in some of your talks, the journey from when a new patient sees or hears your name for the first time to the time they got a warm fanny in the chair and they've signed a contract and they got to get a set of braces on. That journey is a different distance for all different kinds of patients. And what y'all have done an incredible job of is, one, figuring that out in the first place, that there even is a different journey for different people. But two, once you know that, how do you close it? And how do you figure out how to walk that person from over here to fanny in the chair with the braces on? The spoon-fed referral from your pediatric dentist is great, but that's a completely different journey than your 28-year-old on Instagram the night before with a glass of wine or whatever they're drinking.
Yeah.
And they want straight teeth and they've been looking at themselves, And y'all have done an incredible job of figuring out how to cater to and how to teach us how to follow up with that 28-year-old or the patient who's not your spoon-fed referral from your dentist.
I remember when I first came and started working with Luke, obviously at that time, really all I did was sales calls, right? And it was like 2020 COVID where, we had to make some changes, right? And that's when Practice Beacon started coming out. And so I remember like I'd be bringing on new partners and I'd start looking in their practice beacon account, and like as a sales guy at heart who's just lived in CRM systems my entire life, I remember like messaging Luke and Justin. I'm like, dude, like what's going on with these leads? Like nothing's happening. People are just leaving money on the table, and like I wanted to help people. And so that's, I think, where like a lot of training calls really started to come around, because I was having like a panic attack, like as a salesperson, just seeing all this revenue sitting on the table.
Call them back a day later,
yeah. And that's where the light bulb went for me. Obviously, Luke and Justin already had the vision at that point, but for me, that's when I went, oh, the missing link here is most orthodontic practices, medical practices in general, they have no idea how to convert like cold traffic or somebody who's very, very early on in the sales process. And for me, I was like, well, that's kind of what I've done my whole life. You know, most of the sales that I've had to do weren't like spoon-fed from a pedo. It was like some stranger who clicked on a Facebook ad. And we got to go from stranger to relationship.
A real sales process.
A real sales process. I was like, oh, well, I can actually add some value here to the partners, because this is what I've been doing for 10 years of my life. And then practice speaking came out, and then I was able to see like the holes. And I think that was, at least on my side of things in the business, that was definitely a catalyst to be able to start rolling things out like we're doing with you.
We, and probably most orthos, didn't know what a real sales process was. And there's such opportunity when you figure that out. I think the first time around, you know, the front desk would complain that we'd have a no-show, and it wouldn't be the type patient that we were looking for, and they would no-show, and we would call y'all and be like, these are bad leads, you know, and you're like, we get frustrated at that time. And the second time around, we had a mindset change to realize no lead's a bad lead. And y'all taught us that, and taught
unless
our
they don't
staff
have
that.
teeth.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, even in our business, I tell people, you know, we have the lowest close rate out of anybody. Like if you look at our sales process, I mean, and you know,
that's because it's hard for orthos to have a mindset change.
Yeah. And I'll you tell people, hey, you know, we could label all these orthodontists. Some of them are dentists too, bad leads. The reality is we'll get people on 3-4 years later because we just keep following up, and then we'll do business together, and it's a wild success. That's kind of unheard of in orthodontics, or even a business where there's a really short sales process. And traditionally, through referral networks, it also caters to a very short sales process and kind of layups, you know, like, hey, my dad's a pediatric dentist. He says little Johnny needs to start orthodontic treatment. And he literally handed me a card and said, call them, you know, this week. That's great. But, you know, we were talking about the growth in the industry, and this is speculated, but I've done a lot of research. I've even bought data that says orthodontics in the U.S. right now is about $3.5 billion. By 2030, it'll be about $10 billion. A lot of this growth is going to be the types of leads we're talking about.
Exactly.
And so if practices are not ready for that, they're not going to reap the reward. In fact, I kind of think the average practice may decline in revenue, because the majority leading the wave is adults. And how do adults behave? We have Uber, DoorDash, Amazon, you know, Prime, you know, all these things that's now. And so I always tell people we're never going to change consumer behavior, but we can change what we do to offer that great experience. And, you know, like, I don't know about you, but every day I look at my phone, I've got like 5 or 10 missed calls. I just noticed they're red numbers, you know, in recent. I rarely check my voicemails. Like once a week I'll get your voicemail's full. I'll go in and just delete some random ones. And now I find myself not even responding to some text messages. And so my whole point is there's a lot of noise. If we're not doing the best we can to stand out, to show them that we're different, whoever the prospect is. For us, it's orthodontist and dentist. For you, it's somebody looking for braces, aligners, what have you, a perfect smile. We've got to stand out from all the noise, you know, because the choices are, I mean, there's more and more orthodontists in residencies. Now there's more and more corporate players, DSOs, OSOs, these DIYers, which, you know, end up being terrible. but there's more and more options.
Right.
And so, I really think it's going to be the people who do adopt this mindset and realize, hey, we do need to change. We do need to grow. And that really starts with ourselves,
If you look at our gauge numbers with our growth over the last, what has it been, 4 or 5 months that we've been with you guys doing this, the huge difference is number of adult starts. And to your point, it's young adults. Our child starts, they're up.
Yeah.
But the percentage of adults is just, I'd have to look into it again, but maybe triple the number of adult starts. And that's huge too, because, we don't like extracting a lot of bicuspids. To successfully do that, you've got to treat early, So we treat a lot of kids, especially with our pediatric relationship. So we're still getting all those. But when you do that, your average case fee per start is going to be watered down a little bit when you compare it to your total starts, because you got a lot of phase ones. But what's interesting to see with working with hip, our average case, not only is our total starts doubled, but our average case fee has gone up a lot because it's full start case fees, because it's mostly adults. So that's huge too. So it's not just start numbers, but it's value per start.
Yeah.
Which is a huge thing for that growth too.
So you may have more attrition, meaning no-shows, for example, from the young adults.
Sure.
But overall, it's actually better for the business,
yeah.
increasing overall case fee. And I think about me and Luke's journey. Luke just finished treatment. I'm in treatment.
I hate to admit that I was in treatment because my teeth don't look perfect, but
And his
that's
teeth-
my fault. That's my fault.
to make
help you.
Yeah, there you go.
and to make a parallel, his shirt says "Call the leads." The orthodontist would say, "Just wear your frickin' aligners."
There you go.
Luke didn't do that. But point being, as let's just say young adults, or we are kind of the growing segment in orthodontics. Neither one of us, and I think I can speak for you here, neither one of us just woke up one day and said, "I'm going to straighten my teeth today." Right? There was a thought process behind that. There was a journey. I can speak personally. I thought about going into treatment again for a year and a half. And mind you, I've got 250 friends that are orthodontists that could put braces on me at any time. And so when we hear about the bad leads, the no-shows, this person wasn't serious, well, would you want me and Luke to be a patient of yours? We're qualified to do it, right? We're serious to do it. The journey to get there was just different than if I'm with my mom and my mom says it's time to go see Dr. Carter. Right?
Yeah. And, I think one of the things too, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's not a lot of talk about this in dental school or residencies.
Zero.
And that's kind of become a passion of ours. I think last year combined with this year, we've probably spoken at about 8 or so.
8 or 9.
We started working with our first residency program as a partner. So we're running ads for them, Seton Hill.
Cool.
And we just had our 2-week check-in call, which I was on yesterday, and there's 32 exams scheduled. People were just starting to come in because they were booked out. But it looks like it's going to be really successful. And the really neat thing is we're presenting once a month to their residents and really talking business. And even the talks we go to where, it's like a 45-minute lunch and learn, people are just like, we got to have you guys back. You got to come a couple times a year. We're handing the books out. And so we're really trying to educate and deliver to make people aware of what they need to get ready for.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we'll see people come out of residency and it's like, residency, bought a practice, have all the latest tech, and I have $5,000 left to market this thing and have it grow.
Who told you to do that?
And so
this would be huge for a startup.
Yeah.
So getting foot traffic early.
Yeah, for sure. And some of the people who have done it the right way, like Dr. Connect and some of these startups we've seen, they just it's incredible to see. So,
but you think about the mindset, right?
Yeah.
The mindset being, let's take the practice, right? Oh, this is an adult that no-showed, or oh, this person's going to have 3 or 4 consults and need to think about it, so they're not a good leader, they're not an ideal person. Well, building off what Luke just said with a residency program, right? If we're talking about a captive audience, can we actually do business with somebody in residency right now? No, we can't, right? just like the adult patient that maybe is just starting to see what's out there and just go get a consult. Can you really do business with them right here, right now? Maybe. But what are we doing is we're planting seeds and building a pipeline. We're building a web of connections and the ability to start fostering relationships. So when the timing is right, when Luke does wake up and say, it's time to straighten my teeth, who is he going to remember, right? When the resident does get out of school and they do open their own practice, who are they going to remember? The person who's like, oh, no, we can't do business with you right now, or the person that built those seeds. And that's how I think about whether it be digital marketing or adult patients or no-shows. I would love those things, right? That's an opportunity where I know 99% of the practices are going to kick that person to the curb, bad lead, waste opportunity. That's a captive audience that we can take care of and nurture, which clearly you guys have been doing extremely well.
To dig into mindset more and like personalities, a lot of doctors, I said get out my own way earlier.
Yeah.
You know? A lot of doctors, I mean, number one sin probably is pride, right? And so like, and offendability is a cool thing that like my wife and I have been working on the last few years. How did I feel when that bad lead no-showed me? They wasted my time. I'm important, and they wasted my time. Yeah, that's like natural human gut reaction.
Yeah.
But if you can just flip that and get over yourself and say, that doesn't offend me. Nothing offends me. You know, let's keep dripping. They're going to show up. They'll show up one day if they want to straighten their teeth.
That's it.
They might see it on Instagram 7 more times or whatever. But don't let silly things like that offend us.
And that's a beautiful opportunity,
Yeah.
right? Say
So
that's
that's a mindset change.
right?
Yeah.
And that,
100%.
build on that even more, right? Say this person that you're talking about that wasted your time, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they went and had 2 or 3 consults at another practice.
Yeah.
How many times do we get asked, you know, when should we dismiss this patient and never let them back into our practice?
Yeah.
We get this question all the time. So if I know that that's the thinking pattern of the typical practice of we're looking how to kick this person out and never let them back in, and you have this shift in thinking of, no, they didn't waste my time, right? Let's remember who the possible customer is here. And they call back 2 other offices and they say, oh, no, sorry, you can't come back in, or you're going to have to pay a $100 cancellation fee. And then they call you back and you're like,
Sure.
yeah, man, come on in. Can't wait to see you.
Whenever you're ready, man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Down the road, in the moment, maybe it's a waste of time or feels that way, but down the road, it ends up paying dividends.
Exactly.
You know, what was it? Was it March, I think, was a huge month for us? March?
Yeah.
So just to put a bow on that, right? Like we had this huge month, probably one of our biggest month of sales in March.
March and May.
But when I go look at the people that we brought on in March and May, half of those people were people that have been in our web or been in our pipeline for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And guess what? Almost all of them have no-showed me, missed an appointment, didn't text me back, whatever the case may be, all the bad lead stuff. But we had the mindset, no big deal. Who's the possible customer? Not a waste of time, all good. Continue to nurture the relationship, and that ends up yielding fruit down the road.
Exactly.
It's like you said, timing.
Timing
Just
everything, right?
be patient, have humility,
Right.
let go of your ego.
Exactly.
It's going to be okay.
We doctors are not that important.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they want to get their teeth straight, they may come back one day, and if they don't, so be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, we were chatting earlier and we were saying, we even know practices who, may do like 1.5 and take home still really high. They have a great life. I think what's really cool for the people who have a great mindset, what we see is whether they're that 1.5 and take home's really high, margins are great, or it's the practice like you guys where really in a lot of ways you're just getting started because there's all this rebirth and new ideas and new energy. You could be the $30 million practice or the 1.5 with a great mindset. It's about that journey. It's about the growth, whether the type of avatar or business you want to be.
Right.
Versus we see people sometimes with negative mindsets and they're never happy. you know?
No matter what type they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
never happy.
Yeah.
I mean, one time we ran into somebody who had a ton of practices. I think it was like $100 million type of operation.
Wow.
Just negative mindset and not happy at all. Everything's going wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's really important to focus on is like check yourself first, work on yourself,
Yeah.
and then the things around you will start to really take shape. You know?
Amen. I mean, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like when we first met in 19, I was in a tougher place. My mom was dying and all this stuff, and I wasn't focusing on like this personal growth stuff that we're talking about now, from a physical and spiritual and everything, and how that relates to your business. And it's huge. If you just have fun and have a positive outlook on life in general, especially in your business, the possibilities are so much greater.
Yeah.
Not just financial, but I mean, that $100 million practice, if you're not happy, what's it all for?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not serving people positively, then what's it all for? Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So to kind of go back to your goals and HIP and some of the success, we were looking in Practice Beacon, and I think there's over 160 people who have started since really March when ads went live. There's hundreds of people in the pipeline getting nurtured.
Yeah.
And I was doing some math, and I think the return on investment total is over 1,000%.
I was about to say, I want to hear this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's over 1,000%. Obviously, we're looking at production, patient value, which is over 24 months, but over 1,000%. And so, I mean, we're really excited, and I mean, just to see also there's so much more potential.
Yeah.
What can we do together as partners? It's going to be really cool to see.
The more we grow, I think the more we can do. It's just going to snowball. I mean, I've heard other marketing firms that we've worked with try to quote those ROI numbers. And I'm like, yeah, you said it was some great ROI, some 50x or whatever, 10x, 50x, 1000x, whatever you say it was. But our production's the same it was last year. We're growing at a good rate, but like no different than before we had you guys, or what,
Right.
Not y'all, but other firms. And so I'm like, was the return really that?
Yeah.
But it is with y'all because we've more than doubled our business in 6 months.
Wow.
And that's because of y'all. We were growing about 15, 20%, but now we're growing at 150%. Yeah. I
remember talking to you, we were texting late one evening.
Yeah.
And it was like kind of that April, May time where a lot of people like started out the year strong.
Yeah.
And then like April, May kind of went through the toilet. And then you're texting me saying like, dude, we're having like record April, record May.
Yeah. April is our second month with y'all, and it was our biggest month in the history of the practice.
Wow.
By far. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, again, the timing thing. You guys started at a really good part because you didn't wait until later in the year when difficult months happened. So you already had all that momentum.
Right.
So yeah, we're super excited to kind of see the possibilities. Anything else you want to share just in terms of the growth story and mindset, that shift? Anything you think that maybe you didn't hit on that maybe somebody needs to hear?
I mean, I think one of the biggest things is, one, the mindset and willing to stick with a marketing firm early on. We were with y'all and we left you guys pretty early before we probably even gave you a chance back in 2019. But like when you start getting quote bad leads, somebody no shows you, have the just humility and unoffendability to just stick with it and not care about that no show.
Yeah.
And know that over time you'll have enough good leads, or a bad lead might turn into a good lead, right? There are no bad leads, right? So have enough of those over time to have true growth. Goals, I don't know.
World domination.
Yeah.
Well, to your point too, I always try to look at other industries.
Yeah.
Because I think we can put on blinders. And again, as orthodontists, we get used to, well, it's always been this way. And, no shows are always low because of referrals. And when we start to look at other things, let's just take sports,
Mm-hmm.
for example. You know, like back in the day, I was a huge Brett Favre fan. I loved watching him play. Never rooted for his teams, but I mean, he was a great player.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the stats, but I'm pretty sure he threw more interceptions than anybody else. But at the time, he also had more touchdowns.
That's right.
You know, you hear about Babe Ruth, and it's like he struck out all the time, but then he hit all these home runs.
Right.
You know, so I think there's a correlation where, you know, imagine being in that position and the stress. You're Brett Favre getting ready for game days, Super Bowl, playoffs, whatever. They knew it was a numbers game. And so what I look at is, you know, the law of averages. How do I just get more at bats if I know I have a good mindset, if I know I've instilled in my team, they know the goal, they're bought in. You know, regardless of today, like for instance, the past 2 weeks for us haven't been good with setting appointments. Like we don't have a lot of appointments, but we're going to keep doing the things that we know are going to work.
Right.
And it's all, there's ebbs and flows to everything. And so, you know, I see a lot of people, like you're saying, they just get so disappointed and man, no shows this week.
No show,
it was just insane. And it's like, hey, trust the process. Why did you start this to begin with? Stay committed. And it's going to work. Like if there's proof that it's worked in other practices and other industries, and, you know, we know sales and we know consumers. It's the same thing with like an athlete like Brett Favre or Babe Ruth. It's like, let's go back to the form. You know, I think it was Vince Lombardi. Is that how you say his name?
Lombardi.
When they would lose, he would literally go all the way back to the basics and say, hey, here's a football. This is a football. We're going to go back to the fundamentals.
Right.
And that's really what we try and focus on is let's just focus on the fundamentals.
Right.
The fundamentals, man.
Orthodontists, I think by nature, our brains are little mechanical engineers, right? And so super focused on, oh man, our collections rate being 99% and our conversion rate being whatever
200%.
Good, right? Yeah, our conversion rate is 100%. Yeah. And so we put ourselves in these little statistical boxes saying we've got to be awesome compared to all these industry standards. I'm not sure he set those up, but I think we don't focus on the at-bats as much. We focus on having the numbers all being right from a percentage standpoint. And I don't think Brett Favre was ever worried about his completion percentage. He was a gamer.
Yeah.
He was going out there trying to win, trying to score points, and he didn't care what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't care about that no-show.
Yeah.
But to become an orthodontist, though, right? Like there is so much competition, and you have to fit into this mold. And if you don't do it this way, you might not get licensed, or you might not get into a program. Precision, right?
Yeah.
If he's listening, you know, Dr. Jacobs, Brad Jacobs out in Chattanooga, he kind of put that into perspective for me when we were working his consult process. You know, he had a very long consult and explained all the x-rays and everything.
Yeah.
And I just said, hey.
I thought that was important talking about this.
Right. And I said, well, Brad, Dr. Jacobs, you know, think about when you first met HIP, right? Or like we talked on a call. Like I didn't get into how to build an audience in Facebook Ads Manager and how to write code to build a website. I said, we're going to do some marketing. We got a software. We're going to train your team. Does that make sense? And he's like, well, to shed some light on it, he goes, in residency, our whole time in residency is defending what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Oh, yeah.
And so we don't really think when we get out of residency and we're just talking to Luke or Harrison or Mom.
We're doing what we're doing, exactly.
Who don't even know what's going on.
I never thought about that until you just said that.
Yeah, and he kind of had this light bulb, and then it gave me a light bulb too. I was like, oh, well, I didn't know
Maybe
that's
we should do it differently.
Right? You know? So.
That's cool. I'd like to talk to him. I've never put that together, but that probably is why. Yeah.
I'll give you his number. He's a super cool dude.
Yeah, cool.
Well, there's so many parallels to that. Like, you know, we do marketing. If you go look at marketing in school, it's like Madison Fifth Avenue type of stuff. And then when you get out, it's totally flipped. And now it's like AI and the learning curve. It's just so different from education. Sure, the principles are the same: conception, creativity. You know, branding. There's a lot of foundations that are similar, but you've got to adapt if you want to be relevant. And so that's what I think is so cool about your story is you guys have figured that out. You know, you're still like I said, I think early on and in a lot of ways,
trying to figure it out.
you're just getting started. There's
Yeah.
so much growth, and you guys are in a great area. There's so much momentum that you guys have. So
Well, thank you. Y'all are a huge part to it. And
yeah.
I think, Harrison, you called me on a Friday morning at 11 o'clock or something. We talked for 2 hours one day. And I was like, does Luke know you're doing this?
No, it's our little secret. I found an old phone number and I'm just working it. No, that's not how it went.
And I think Kyle Sparkman kind of helped bridge it and you know, a
I
little
suspected
bit.
that, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah,
So-
Kyle's awesome. We've become close friends. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
He's doing some
So-
cool stuff up in Amarillo with
Well, awesome. Hey,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming,
Yeah,
telling your
thank you.
story.
Yeah.
If somebody is listening and maybe they're watching, listening, they want to know more, contact you directly if that's okay.
Yeah.
How should they do that?
My email is bcarterthomas@gmail.com. Excited that, like you said, we're just a little seed just getting watered right now. I think so
Yeah, it's going to be amazing to see. And, you know, specifically over the next decade. I mean, that's our goal is, you know, we want to partner with you guys long term. And so just looking at the growth that you guys are set up for and other partners as well, it's going to be awesome.
Well, thanks.
So,
I'm excited. I wasn't aware of what you said you've read about and purchased some data on over the next 5 or 10 years, what Ortho's going to do.
Yeah.
That should be great for the whole industry and all of us. Yeah.
The future is going to be adults.
Yeah.
It really is. And adults are going to no-show more. So if you can't figure out how to adopt for that, you might get left in the dust.
We'll see. It's definitely bright for you guys.
Yeah,
So thanks.
Yeah.
Y'all too.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about HIP or any of the topics in this episode, send an email to hello@hipcreativeinc.com. That's hello@hipcreativeinc.com, or jump over to our website at hip.agency.